Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of PDPMO, or Please Don't Piss Me Off. My name is Richard, your host once again. I'd like to say thank you for stopping by and talking movies. It's one of my personal passions, so I'd like to share it with you. For today's movie that I've selected, I'm going to be doing the 2021 version of Dune. Um, Again, for those of you who are new to the channel, just letting you know that I'm going to be doing a brief review, basically whether I liked it, what I didn't, without giving away any spoilers. And then I will make the announcement that I'm going to get into the spoilers. So if you want to go in with a blank slate, it's at that point you can jump off. So before I begin, once again, thank you to all the support I've received for this. I'm so humbled and appreciative of everyone who's watching these videos. Feel free to share them if you want, just so we can, you know, get the word out that there's a new channel for discussing movies. Because I love sitting around with people and talking about this form of art. So let's just dive in. Again, this is the non-spoiler part. So Dune. Uh, like those of you who have been with me from the start, you know I go in with a blank slate with the expectation of please don't piss me off. I'm actually one of those people that was actually a fan of the original Dune back in the 80s with Kyle MacLachlan. I mean, the movie has not held up over the years, but as a kid, I was just fascinated by the story. So I had to make a real concerted effort to go into this and not try and compare the experience between the original and this one, and just go in with a blank slate with the idea of don't piss me off. I hate when studios set up something and then deliver the complete opposite. So I went in blank slate, and I have to say I really liked this movie. I'm a big fan of the director, Denis Villeneuve. I loved what he did with the Blade Runner sequel, which I will eventually get to. Arrival is another great one. I like his vision. I like his style. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite directors. I can't really list him as a favorite director of mine yet, simply because I haven't seen enough of his work, but he is definitely trending in the right direction for me. Across the board, the performances were great. I did have a couple of issues, but I don't know if that was because of the movie or the theater that I watched it in, because there is a definite discrepancy between the darkness and the light in this film. Obviously, all the stuff involving House Harkonnen versus House Atreides, and of course the Fremen on Arrakis. You've got like this really bright desert, and then at night I know it was supposed to be dark, but again, I don't know if this was like just the theater I was in. But there are times it was so dark I could almost barely, I could barely see what was going on. Um, so I'm going to reserve judgment on that until I eventually watch it on, say, DVD or Blu-ray, simply to see if that was the intention or if it was just bad theater experience. I had a similar problem with the sound. The music, Hans Zimmer, one of my favorite composers, did the music very intense. But again, there were times when the music was so overpowering and people were talking quietly that I couldn't make out what they were saying. So again, I don't know if that was the theater, maybe the sound and maybe the audio and the visual were off in that theater that night. But again, I'm going to have to reserve judgment on that. But across the board, the performances were amazing. There's in a movie of this scale, there's typically one or two performances that just don't hold up to the others. But just across the board, I thought everyone was great. Timothy Chalamet, Oscar Isaac, Jason Momoa, like all the way down to even Dave Bautista. I liked his portrayal. But yeah, so just great performances all around. For those of you who are looking for just, and you know, this is only part one. So if you're going in expecting the entire movie of Dune, this is only the first half. So they're going to be doing a part two, both judging by the success of the first one, and I mean, let's face it, it's already been announced. But yeah, it's a story that definitely needs completion. I'm looking forward to part two. However, when it gets here, I'm not going to go in with high expectations because PDPMO. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. It wasn't perfect. Um, it didn't like blow my socks off or anything. I wouldn't say it was amazing. It was a very good movie. I'm looking forward to part two. All right. So for those of you who are good with that, thanks for stopping by. And for people who don't mind hearing a few spoilers, let's jump into it. So, bye, people who are leaving. All right. So, spoilers. As for people who have seen this movie or have seen the original or read the books, you know what the story is about. House Atreides has been given the basically the contract to take over the planet Arrakis and their spice mining operations. I'm going to try and circle around because there was something funny I read about that online. But spice is these crystals that form on the desert floor that is one of the most valuable substances in the universe or the galaxy. And so, control of the planet of Arrakis, where the spice mining is done, is a huge honor. It was taken from the emperor. The emperor took it from House Harkonnen and gave it to House Atreides. Oscar Isaac being the head of House Atreides. Turns out, again, spoiler alert, so don't get mad at me if you're still here and you didn't want to know. It turns out to be a setup, basically, so that House Atreides can be in one place, so that Harkonnen, along with troops sent by the Emperor, can wipe out House Atreides because the Emperor feels they're a threat. Again, just this great sweeping story. The book was amazing. I did like the first movie, even though it was dated. I mean, Sting was in it. I mean, he was so over the top. But in a movie like this, you do need some over the top performances. Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron Harkonnen was over the top and yet somehow understated at the same time. But he's one of those rare actors that can pull that off. Dave Bautista got close to, he played Harkonnen's nephew, got close to as being like too over the top, like Eddie Redmayne was in Jupiter Ascending. Just there's these fits of rage, but because of the character's overall demeanor, it wasn't like out of the blue. Like with Redmayne, he would like be whispering and then start screeching. Dave Bautista did well and is actually turning into quite a good little actor. Which little, the guy's huge. But if you just looked at him from his WWE days and say, hey, this guy's going to be in some of the biggest movies to come out in the early 21st century, you'd be like, give me a break. But he's pulling it off. Yeah, so just Zendaya's not in it very long. For those of you who are big Zendaya fans, she's not in it very long. Not that she dies. She's just really not in the movie that often. Her character doesn't really become more central till the second half. And Javier Bardem, almost unrecognizable as Sithgar, but again, he's just such a phenomenal actor. Like I can watch him read Dr. Seuss and be like, yes, this is amazing. So all in all, great performances. The scope of this movie is unbelievable. The visual style, Just the sweeping vistas of the dunes themselves, what they did with the special effects on the sandworms. For those of you who don't know anything about the story, there are these giant sandworms that tunnel underneath the sands of Arrakis. The special effects there were amazing. You go back to the original Dune, and the special effects just don't hold up. But this was really, really, really well done. And yeah, I'm looking forward to part two, as I stated. Um, Josh Brolin, again, not in it for very long, like as far as screen time. Uh, he delivers. He always delivers. And again, you go back to watching, say, The Goonies, and be like, "Hey, Brand's gonna turn into like this like stoic actor." You'd be like, "Really?" Next, you're gonna tell me Sean Astin's gonna be in Lord of the Rings. Wah, wah. Anyway, but yeah, no, Dune for the most part was great. I mean, there's a lot of betrayal for those familiar with the movies. Um, there's some literal stabbing in the back, but yeah, just it's got a 2.5 hour runtime, and again, this is only the first half, so if even if you double that, you're looking at a 5 hour movie with part one and part two. So you got to be willing to sit down and really give this a shot. There are some instances where I got the feeling that there was stuff that could have been shortened. Like there's a lot of like scenes where people are just like grabbing the sand and letting it flow through their fingers, and I get symbolism, the metaphors and stuff like that. I get all that, but there's just a lot of that in here. I like to refer to it as unspoken exposition. It's just, explaining the thoughts that these people are having without actually having them verbalize it. When used correctly, it can be an amazing device. I just felt there was a lot of times where a lot of people were standing there posing, looking out on the thing for like 30 seconds a minute. You cut that down even in half, you're probably going to lose about 20 minutes off the runtime. So again, I mean, I get it. It's scope. It's trying to make this more of an art piece than a sci-fi epic. And for me, it does bridge that line quite well. It is an art piece, but it's also a sci-fi epic. It had me enough to make me want to know what happens next. But I wonder if that is because I'm familiar with the story. If somebody who doesn't know the story of Dune, or like didn't read the book or didn't watch the original, if they don't know what's coming, if they would have phased out and just been like, I don't care anymore. That's possible. So if that does happen, then this movie has to be looked at more of a fan service, right? Like for fans of the book and the original movie, this is what the movie should have looked like. But if you don't know anything about it, it could be a little long in the tooth and a little drawn out. But yeah, I highly recommend this movie, especially if you're already a fan of the book or the original movie, and even if you hated the original movie, and you don't need to convince me why. There's a lot of reason to hate the original movie. Go check this one out. This is a very, very good representation of the story of Dune, and I think it will do fans of the book who maybe felt that the first movie missed the point because they went more for a campy, over the top sci fi action movie. This is more of a political intrigue style movie. So, yeah, big fan of this movie. Looking forward to part two. But there are definite issues. I will have to check it out again to see if the lighting and audio is intentional or if it was just a bad theater experience. but I do recommend Dune. So if you get a chance to watch it, and it is one of those movies that does ring better in the theater, because to watch it at home, you'll lose that scale a little bit. So if you can get out there to catch this movie in theaters, I recommend it. And if you don't, and you're only able to watch it at home, try and watch it on the biggest screen you can, because visually it'll do this movie justice. So that's it for me and Dune. Big fan. Check it out. Please like and share. Let's get the conversation going so we can discuss movies because we love them. And thank you for your continued support. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you about more suggestions or your thoughts on any of these reviews. Be sure to hit me up. So, talk to you soon.